Hey everyone, spoilers for Nightmare Alley, the new Guillermo del Toro film. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Script Department. I'm John. I'm joined today by Caleb and Michela to discuss Nightmare Alley, the new Guillermo del Toro film. Before we get into that, if you haven't already, do subscribe to our podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast. Just search for The Script Department. You can also find us on our website, thescriptdepartment.net, where you can see all the great projects that our global network of screenwriters are getting up to. And hit us up on social media. Just hit the links in the description. So guys, I'm kind of hot and cold about Del Toro sometimes as a filmmaker. I really love Hellboy. That was my introduction to him as a director. Pan's Labyrinth was one of those films that I really appreciate that film, but I don't think I've never had this kind of burning desire to go back and watch it again. It's definitely a masterpiece, but it's never been kind of my cup of tea, I guess. And even The Shape of Water, a film I was really excited to see. I felt I can see why it won all the awards, but it wasn't a film that really kind of bowled me over, floored me the way that I was expecting it to with all the awards buzz that it got. This seems like this film was written for me. I'm a huge fan of old pulp noir stories and big fan of every actor involved in this. The idea of the Carney setting and everything was just, yeah, I just really got excited watching the trailer for this. And I have to say, I was absolutely blown away by the film. I loved every second of it. This is easily my favorite Del Toro film, which I'm relieved to be able to say that, because I was really thinking there'll be something in this that doesn't click with me. You know, it'll be brilliantly made and all that, but there'll be something in here that just doesn't gel for me and I won't watch it again. And I can't wait to watch this film again. I'm waiting for it to come out now on Apple or Amazon or wherever so I can watch it in 4K. And yeah, what was your experience with it, Michela? Because we watched it together.
Yes, I loved it, first of all. And I didn't know much about the story. I think maybe I watched the trailer once before. I didn't know, it was totally unexpected. That's what I'm trying to say. I love the noir genre, so there was definitely, in the terms of the story itself and the cinematography, the way it was directed, it was definitely would fall into that genre. And and the carnival setting as well. It's something that worked very well with, in terms of, I usually, Nightmare Alley, as the title suggests, I think of an empty street, something that is scary, and it makes me think of LA. The first thing I think is like an LA, like a noir in Los Angeles. But then the idea that this was Nightmare Alley set, at the beginning in this carnival setting was very original, I thought. I thought it was a great film, and I really, the more I think about it, I don't think I had anything that I would say, oh, they could have done this or they could have done that. Was really satisfied with everything from
and it's a long film as well, and it really,
I didn't feel it. Feel it. No. I remember it was the same feeling I had when I watched Prisoner, which is Prisoner is one of those films that it's long, but you don't feel it because you're so much into the story and the character that at the end, you're not like, oh, when is it going to end? You don't have those thoughts.
Caleb, what was your experience?
Yeah, so I got to see this in theaters a couple weeks ago, and I watched it again at home like yesterday. So Guillermo del Toro is probably one of my favorite directors. So I'm a little bit different from John, because I would say that the fantastical side of him is definitely up my alley. And like Pan's Labyrinth was one of probably the most formative movies for me as like a early, like wanting to get into making movies. And so going into this, like I was excited, and of course, but I only watched the trailer once, I think, too, and so I didn't know much going in at all. I had seen like the picture of him walking through, of Bradley Cooper walking through like the circular tunnel in the fun house. So yeah, going in, didn't know. I knew it was 2.5 hours. And I felt those 2.5 hours because I was in a theater, and like, it's the kind of different experience of going and doing something and sitting there in a dark room. And so, but not to say that it was a bad 2.5 hours, but the movie ended, and we can get into this whenever we talk about the writing, but the movie ended and I just was kind of like not let down. I didn't know how I felt. That was why I wanted to watch it again, because I think I was waiting for something more to happen, but this movie's so reserved, like up until a certain part, but like it's and it being 2.5 hours, it takes time to build that. And I think that whenever I watched it again, I was like, yeah, I really dig this movie. So, so yeah, luckily I came out of it liking it. So
It's funny that I think if I probably would feel the same. I'd probably change my perspective on like Shape of Water, for example, if I went to watch that again. But it's just I just never got around to it, and maybe I will. Maybe I will actually now after this talk. But yeah, it's funny. Like I was just all in, and I'm the guy who typically tends to have a hot and cold kind of relationship with Del Toro's films, and you're the opposite then on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Michela.
No, I was thinking it's so interesting about your experience in the cinema and how you felt, because I had cabin fever when I watched The Eightful Eight, and I was really feeling I had to go away. And I know this, it was also, they were actually stuck in that one location. But then I think I would appreciate it in a different way if I could, pause the film for a moment and come back to it. So, yeah, no, I think I'm possibly between you two. I didn't really add any no expectations, neither good or bad expectations, but I don't have a strong view on Guillermo del Toro. Neither in, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I appreciate his work. So I don't think that was, to me, really, I watched it because of the story, what I saw in the trailer, without, telling myself, oh, this is going to be good or bad because he's the director.
So the plot of the story, just because I get to rattle off these characters' names, these are the greatest characters' names in any movie I've ever come across. Stanton Carlyle, Dr. Lilith Ritter, Zena the Seer, Clem Hoatley, Esra Grindle, Molly Cahill, Mrs. Kimball, Louise Hoatley, Funhouse Jack, even the Doctor, Dr. Elrud. I mean, these are just the greatest names. Anyway, so it's let me see, we got Bradley Cooper, Stanton Carlyle. His father has died. He's burned the house down. He's walking away. He gets on a bus, and he gets off outside of Carney. He gets a job in the carnival, and he just becomes one of the workers there. He meets Molly, played by Rooney Mara, and he's slowly falling for her. He learns the kind of tricks of the trade as a kind of a seer, where he's able to predict, read people's minds and read people's fortunes and things like that. He learns all those tricks from other people there. We learn about from Willem Dafoe is a really scary guy in this, and we learn he's got this thing where he will we can talk about the geek, the idea of the geek a little bit more, but he's got basically this guy held prisoner, and he's kind of drugging him or whatever it is, and he explains this kind of trick that he uses to lure these people into his captivity, basically. which will then come back later on. And then that's basically the first act, is him just learning the tricks of the trade. We then move away from the first act, which is a long first act. We then move away from that, and Bradley Cooper and Rooney Mara have created a new life for themselves in New York. It's New York, isn't it? Am I right? Or is it a nameless city? Or? Yeah, okay. And they're living in a hotel, living in the big city anyway, and making a nice bit of money for themselves, doing these tricks for let's say a higher class of client. You know, like they'll do them in ballrooms of hotels rather than in carnivals or whatever. And he then meets Kate Blanchett's character, Dr. Ritter, and she's trying to catch him out. And they kind of build up a bit of a relationship where it's a bit of a flirtatious relationship. I don't think anything really happens between them, but there's a kind of a betrayal going on, because Rooney Mara just wants him to kind of leave things alone, and don't try and get cocky. Don't try and, go above, get carried away with yourself and your abilities. But he forms a plan to scheme these like rich and powerful people out of their money by reading their future, because she's a therapist and she knows all their secrets. They end up crossing the wrong guy anyway in doing this. And by the third act, everything has come crashing down. She kind of betrays him. Rooney Mara leaves and he loses everything. And then the story ends then beautifully with him being lured in as the geek for this other carny. And he knows he's being lured in, and he's like, dude, this is the job I was meant to, this is the role I was meant to play. He ends it on a kind of a line like that. So it's a really great, really, as you said, a very reserved story. Lots of just kind of hanging out and learning the ropes in the first act. Not a huge amount of drama, really, other than making sure people don't kind of screw up the trick or things like that. Let's kind of talk about the carnival section first of all, because that to me, it's clearly the standout set piece of this whole movie. It's a huge portion of this movie as well. It's about 40 minutes, I would say, at the very least, if not more.
I think I looked in it while I was watching. I just kind of pop up the time code, but I think it hit like right at an hour is when they're driving away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, it is very, very, and it's not even the halfway point of the movie. I would say it's it just goes to show how long the film is. So, Michela, you commented first, just on how amazing the cinematography was when we were watching it. What was your experience of watching that kind of set and the way the characters and everything?
Oh, well, about the set, I love the darkness with the colors of the carnival. Obviously, that's very effective. And the red, the red colors, and then the electricity color for Molly. Yeah. Is it Molly that she's the one doing the yes? I thought, well, first of all, I was thinking, when was it filmed? Do you know when it was filmed? More or less, because I was thinking if it was during COVID. I don't know if it was during COVID. That was the perfect set as well to kind of be. I know
it was at least, like some of it at least was, because I've seen some production pictures of like masks and stuff. So
yes.
Yeah, I think it would have been made during the pandemic, I think. And you're right. Yeah. It's a very very COVID.
It's a village. Yeah. It's basically a village with these characters. The fact that Xena, Xena is the one helping him at the beginning, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, because first we see him getting there, but then he goes into her house. So the house, it's a brilliant setting as well. And then the whole introduction to this world, it's extremely interesting, because I personally didn't know much about the tricks or what's going on was in my mind that possibly I know more about the circus than the carnival when I think of that. And so that's a bit of a mix, I guess. And I thought that I wasn't just introduced to this character and the world, but like really how the carnival world works, and these tricks, and how much work there is behind these tricks, which you don't, sometimes you don't reflect on them. And all the, when she was reading the cards from the audience, and they had a glass, but also how simple it is. Like I was thinking, oh my God, that's what she did. Basically, they were bound with what was it? Like a blackboard.
Yeah, they would have the notes. They would be feeding her information. Yeah,
exactly. And I thought how interesting to see how it works. So I think really, it wasn't just, well, obviously the characters are, very well developed, but I thought they really worked because of what they were doing. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were interesting because of their jobs. Each one of them has a quality. And Bradley Cooper's quality is actually to learn very fast from other people. It's basically reinvent himself, because he went there with no job, if we can say that, and came out with getting everyone's job and learning, learning that and finding a way to just grow from there. So he's a real survivor, and that's why the ending was so unexpected as well, because it gives you the idea of the character who will always stand up again and win. That's what you think of him at the beginning.
And it is a rite of passage in that first act. It's him, he starts off, he just gets the job through sheer luck because the weather has turned, they need to tidy up quickly or something like that, and it's basically just, okay, look, I'll give you $1 for, or well, it's not even $1, is it? It's like half $1 or something like that he gets for his efforts. It's something minuscule, and he doesn't even get to keep the whole lot because there's like a penalty or something as well, or like he ate lunch or he had a beer or something like that, so they take it from that. And it's just he starts off with nothing, and by the end he's found the woman he loves, and it's almost like an entire movie in its own right in just the first act of this movie.
Yeah, it really feels like a movie per se. I mean, it could have left with them leaving the carnival. By the way, I was reading, I think it's Buffalo, the elite of Buffalo.
So Buffalo, New York. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that could have been a short film.
That could have been just an incredible movie in its own right if you just left it there. Yeah. Caleb, what would you think about it?
So real quick story on what Michela was talking about with like the tricks. It was funny, the weekend after I saw this, I was working a corporate event and like doing some camera work for that. And there was a mentalist there, and I was like, have you seen Nightmare Alley? Because he was behind stage with us, and he was really cool. But like, it was just kind of funny because I was like, man, this is such a coincidence. But he was saying like how he was surprised that they like kind of released some of like how the tricks are done in this movie. So that was just a really funny coincidence.
That was one of the things that was really interesting about the film, because I know that a lot of critics were talking about that, and there was one critic in particular, Simon Mayo, who had talked about how he used to perform that trick, the mentalist trick in the film, and he was quite annoyed by the fact that they explained it in great detail. And I think I think about films like The Prestige, where there's lots of magic tricks being shown in that film, but they're not showing you how to do them. They'll show some of the underlying principles of them, but they're not really getting caught up in the step-by-steps of here's how you do the trick. So it's like it's a love letter to magic, but it's not putting anybody out of work. Whereas I feel like this is a love letter to the old carnies and those kind of illusionists and mentalists and things like that. But it's also kind of depriving people of their livelihood, like the guy you just met. In a few years time, everyone's going to know that. I remember when I was in I was doing a tour of Warner Brothers once, and somebody was explaining. It was right after Inglourious Basterds had come out, and they were explaining how we store all the film in this special building because, as you may or may not know, film is highly flammable. And then everybody just interrupts and says, "Yeah, we saw Inglourious Basterds. We know that film is flammable," and blah blah blah. And they explain the whole thing. And you can just tell, movies are doing our job for us now. And I kind of feel like this is definitely going to happen with Nightmare Alley in a few years' time. People are just not going to be able to do that trick anymore. Yeah. No, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah. And I will say he was the mentalist that I worked with was pretty amazing. So he definitely had progressed. So I'm sure that the profession has like evolved and that these are kind of maybe some older tricks. But yeah, so this carnival section for me, like the first time was kind of like where I think I had a lot of my issues just because so there's a line in there where Bradley Cooper says like, and he's come up with his new trick for Rooney Mara, and he says that's where the drama is, because he's talking about like how to build the drama and tension in their new trick. And I was like, there hasn't been much drama here, but and like you said, like it's just kind of like slow and building and like revealing character. And so I think that was why like it was I didn't know how I felt. And so watching through the second time, there's the scene very early on where they chase down the geek that's escaped, and they go into the fun house, and that scene is amazing. And I think once you guys watch it for a second time, you'll just appreciate it so much more, like just the whole movie so much more, because it's not like overplaying its hand and saying like, look at how smart we are, which is how I think I walked out of the first time. I was like, it almost felt like it was being like trying to like wink at the audience and being like, look at how smart this movie is. And as I did some research, Del Toro was talking about the writing of it and had said like that the ending of the movie was not supposed to be a surprise. It was supposed to be like this, where it's going, where his character is going to end up. And I think that that's where I was like, oh, that like you wanted me to know that. And then in watching through the second time, he talks about there's a circular. What is that word? And so he talks about there's that nature of this movie where you can watch it again, and the way that the character ends is almost like he's looking back at the beginning of the movie and crying about where he begins. And so like now to bring it back to the funhouse scene, he's walking through, he as a character stepping through this tunnel that's a circle and a spiral, and he's looking at himself in mirrors, and there's like these lines of like, look at yourself, you sinner. And like it's almost nothing that's like new, but just the way that it's done and reserved is very nice. And it's almost like as he steps into that, he's stepping into this like upside down movie that then just spirals out of control by the end. And in looking at the geek that he's chasing down, he's chasing himself down. So that scene is just like on second viewing, knowing the whole movie is just kind of a beautiful scene. And that's why it's like so weird that like it's this movie that where it's going. It's intended to be like kind of predictable, but it's how he gets there as a character and a character study. But yeah, so the whole carnival section on second viewing for me was a lot stronger, just because I kind of knew I didn't have the expectations that I was bringing in watching it like I was in the theater.
I didn't see it coming because I obviously had the feeling that it wouldn't end well for Bradley Cooper,
yeah,
for the character. But I had no idea that he would go back to the carnival. So that was something I didn't expect. I mean, I expected a bad ending, possibly in the city. Do you know what I mean? Like ending there,
Yeah.
and maybe, you know, the police
There,
got him, or but never. And when I understood at the very end, when he's going there, oh my God, he's going to be offered that job. That's the trick that Willem Dafoe, like, that's
yeah,
the same,
yeah,
said, you know, he put something in his drink and he gave him a drink. And
yeah,
I was like, oh my God, I didn't expect that.
yeah.
Yeah, that was very good.
And I think that was so, because I saw it with my wife, and I was like, did I? Because I picked up on that scene. There's two times where Willem Dafoe kind of explains what's going to happen. The whole Chekhov's gun with the alcohol, and I was like, oh well, that's coming back.
Yes.
I feel like that could have been written a little stronger. That part in particular, but like, and then the geek thing, whenever he sits down and explains, for some reason I was just like, that's how it's like, that's the ending right there. And so I asked my wife, I was like, did I just like just happen to like guess it, and that kind of just like made me just sit there for the next 2 hours and just kind of be like, okay, I know where this is going. But so what were your thoughts there, John?
I didn't see it coming. I have the ability to do that. I can, you know, Michela has a way of being able to see.
Oh, I know the bad guy and the killer from like immediately, just from the shot, from the how he's framed and everything.
Like I can't. I have a way of suspending my disbelief on that stuff. I can watch a movie, like, as much as I am aware of these types of principles and storytelling techniques, I'm just able to switch off when I watch a film. And I didn't see the end. I didn't know where this film was going to go at any point. I didn't even assume that the story would leave we would leave the carnival behind permanently for the rest of the film, you know, like that particular carnival. I assumed that there would be these like flashes back and forth, or that, you know, it would be, you know, different timelines or something like that. So I just had no idea where this film was going to go, and that I loved that ending, and it's the fact that he laughs at the ending. Like, it's not like he's being lured. It's not like he's being lured in. He's aware. He knows the tricks of the trade. He's on the ball, and he's so desperate he'll take it. And or at least that was my reading of it anyway. And it never felt tragic to me. It is definitely a tragedy. It is tonally set up from the beginning that this is a tragedy. Yeah. This is a guy who literally burns his home down and walks away. This is a tragic character from top to bottom.
Oh, yes.
And yet I didn't know if this film was going... I was able to suspend my disbelief and suspend my inner screenwriter and just go with it. And I love the fact that, as tragic as the ending is, it's on his terms. And I love tragedies that are on the character's terms. Like I always say, The Wrestler is one of the best written tragedies because everything is on his term. He's going to reject help again and again and again. He's the one sabotaging his own life again and again and again. He knows what he's doing. He knows he's not a good guy. He knows there's no redemption for him. And he will go out in a blaze of glory at the end of the film. In this film, it's the same. He's making that choice. He doesn't realize he's being offered this thing at the beginning, but as soon as he figures it out, he just laughs and he's like, "Yeah, you know, this is where I'm meant to be." And it's so I loved it. I didn't see it coming. I can imagine though, if you did see it coming, it would kind of it could affect your viewing. It could create a negative viewing experience. I could see that definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was like, I need to watch this again, because like something doesn't feel right. Like I feel like I should have liked it more than I did.
There's a good lesson there in, I guess, not making it too obvious, because although I don't know how, you know, like for example, you and I had very different experiences figuring out those moments. Michela, did you have an inkling did you have an idea that that's where this film is going to go with the whole idea when Willem Dafoe was explaining it?
No, no, because I thought that was a moment. So to me, that was a lesson, when the character who's the master or is the teacher or the one who's guiding the person is giving you, teaching you a lesson about, in that human nature, in that sense. So how human nature is and what we do. So I didn't think it was an element that would come back. I didn't see it like that. I personally think, for me, because usually I one of those people that I'm spot what's going on, but I think it's when the film, it's an investigation. I am so into the investigation. I'm investigating myself. I'm getting all the clues, and then I arrive to the conclusion because I'm looking at every clue that is there for me. But I didn't investigate, if that can make sense, as a viewer. When I was watching, I was just really looking at what is he going to do next. And again, I knew and I felt that there's no redemption for him of some sort. I mean, it obviously it didn't. Well, you would need a character. It's always the same story that would say it's time to stop. But then it wouldn't be entertaining if they stopped, right? As characters, it wouldn't be entertaining anymore. So they cannot stop. But that kind of behavior leads to a negative or tragic ending, but never that he would go back to the carnival. Never that. That's what I'm trying to say. Even if he got shot by, I don't know, somebody else followed him in town or somewhere, but never that it's basically worse than how it began, because he had some self. I mean, it was more respectable, even if we knew what he did and he burned the house, but with his father. But that was so. I felt extremely bad because I thought, look what life can do to you. If you make a series of bad choices, you end up in the worst possible condition. You could have been happy with what you had and have a decent life, and then you wanted everything, because that was the point. He wanted the money. He was trying to please that. I don't remember the name of the character. The one who was
Ritter.
The man who asked him to.
Sorry.
Ezra Grindel.
And
Grindel,
and that was his punishment. But I never thought that punishment was worse than what he had at the beginning. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think too, the part that I really liked about the where every character ends up, and I think it's really important that to note where every character ends, is anything that is outside of Bradley Cooper's character, or anyone outside of his character, kind of ends on a positive note. And that I loved with Rooney Mara's character, her running away, not them using her as a tragic character death that propels his character. She breaks away and chooses that by the end, and then that's I think the last time we see her, and that's really great. But I think there's even once near the end, he looks at Xena's Xena's headlining somewhere, and everyone's successful, and he was at one point, but it's like you were saying, the story keeps going for him. And so the only characters that kind of end badly are the ones that he is doing something towards, or killing, or violent towards. So I think that's really really drives the tragedy home of his character.
Yeah, I even think if you just think of the character's journey, and thinking of a circular narrative, basically ending where it began. I even think that it didn't end where it all began. It ended worst for him. I keep saying that. I think it's a step. It's even lower than where he was when there is a, it wasn't, because I think if he just got another job of another sort, like a more, I know it's not a respectable job, but if it was just, look, you can, I'll give you some money, can you go fix those boxes, or just help cleaning the place. But the fact that it becomes the man in the cage, there's nothing worse than that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I think he ended a step, it's not even where it began, it's a step ahead.
So the title Nightmare Alley, because I was looking this up, because the reference to Nightmare Alley is a line that Willem Dafoe says. He describes how you find these people in the Nightmare Alley, or you find them in this, or you find them in that, and he just mentions it as this offhand remark. And then I was Googling, what does Nightmare Alley mean? And this dmtalkies.com wrote it. Nightmare Alley is a melancholic depiction of one such tragic man who is the architect of his own doom. And it's described as kind of it's a space, it's a kind of a frame of mind that is it's just that spiral descent. And you know, if you know what Nightmare Alley refers to, then you are it's essentially giving away the whole movie, isn't it? It's essentially giving away the whole ending. Also, if you know that this is that this is an adaptation of a very, very famous pulp noir classic, again, it kind of just, there's absolutely no kind of no way you can misinterpret where this story is going to go.
No.
It's very obvious.
It's the same as I read the same kind of book over and over, which are crime stories and detective stories, and they're all, but I like the journey, so it doesn't matter in the end, it was a very original journey for me to watch, so I was satisfied with that.
Let's talk about Lilith Ritter, Cate Blanchett's character, because I think she's an incredible antagonist. So what happens is in the second act, Rooney Mara and Bradley Cooper have started their own business. Now they're doing shows in a more kind of glitzy setting. They're wearing gowns and tuxedos and stuff like that. Total, far cry from the Carney days. And I think it's like 5 years later or 2 years later, something like that. And they are performing in front of this crowd, and then Cate Blanchett's character stands up and challenges them, and he kind of gets one over on her, and now he's impressed by her. He tracks her down. She's a psychologist, and she proposes that they do a con on a judge who lost a child in the war, lost a son in the war, and that's very successful. And then it goes to he's introduced to Ezra Grindle, played by Richard Jenkins. Richard Jenkins, a regular on the Del Toro casting list.
He's so good.
And he's almost like a Howard Hughes type character. He's like this incredibly wealthy, powerful man. He has a history of violence and aggression towards people. It's implied that he has done bad things to women, and he lost his loved one. I can't remember if he was married to her. I think maybe he was married to her, and he wants to speak to her again. And Bradley Cooper decides, let's use Rooney Mara, because she kind of looks like her, which is a little bit contrived, but if she stands far enough in the distance, maybe he'll buy into it. And it's just going to end badly anyway. Yeah,
that's what I love about it, though. Like, it's just like, in what world would this work? Like, because this is a very real movie. Like, even though there's like kind of some hints at fantastical things going on, like with the pickled fetuses at the beginning.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, but yeah, let's just stand over there and like this plan's gonna work. I love it. It's
And he's
so like
and of course he's not going to want to go closer. He's not going to want to approach
yeah yeah
is the woman he loves. He's standing
yeah
there in spirit form. That I think this is an example of it is okay to change the text. It is okay to adapt the text for a modern audience. They could have done something more like he sees Rooney Mara and becomes infatuated with her because she looks
yeah
like her, and I want to get close to her. Bradley Cooper won't allow it. Things get bad, things go bad, whatever. That's just off the top of my head, a simple way of just
yeah.
making this work. But instead, no, let's dress her up in a white dress, put some fake blood on her hands, and it's just, it's just mad.
I
The
almost
freezing cold in New York as well.
yeah. But I almost feel like it's fitting because of like it's his ego gets so big that he thinks that this plan's gonna work, and so like it
Yeah.
almost for his downfall, it's like kind of very darkly comedic that's what sends him spiraling in the end. So
No, I really enjoyed that. There was lots of dread in that whole section. I wanted to talk about Ritter, but let's talk about Grindel actually.
Yeah,
Just that whole storyline because we're on it now.
Yeah.
Michela, what was your reading of that kind of whole plot or that kind of that con that they're running?
I mean, looking back at what Bradley Cooper did with these tricks. Well, I mean, so I think there is always not the expectation, but any person, let's say, that is it asks for someone like Bradley Cooper, that kind of that have that role as what would you say is a mentalist? Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
You must know that there is some truth and there is something that is not completely true. That's what I think. I think you want to hear those things, but apparently they almost made it scientifically proven that he's really a mentalist and he's really seeing the dead people, and he can tell you what they want to give you a message from them. So it seems like this very wealthy man, very clever man, believes that this is scientific. It's true. It's happening. And for this reason, I don't think it is fitting for me that he went to the extent of ask Molly to go there.
Yeah. Well, and they say they use the word materialized, which I think is also hilarious.
Yes, yeah. What year was it set? The story?
It's that section's in 41.
1940s, 1940s.
Yeah.
1940s, yeah. I don't know. It's I found it. I mean, I found it interesting that a powerful man like that, surrounded by scientists or in a scientific kind of facility, running tests and all that, he bought it. That I mean, he believed it. And Richard, then there is
no, go on.
Sorry, but no, the actor from Mindhunter.
Sorry, I was just going to say Holt McElhaney. I was just going to say.
Yes.
I love that he was in this.
He's brilliant.
Obviously, he didn't buy it. In the same way.
So the antagonistic force in this story really is between, you've got Holt McElhaney, who's the kind of the protector of Richard Jenkins' Grindel character. He really he cares about this guy, and he really does. Like people don't understand him, but I do. And I'm gonna look out for him. I'm not gonna let you exploit him. And he's offering insane amounts of money to Bradley Cooper to do this, and Holt is just not on this at all. Then on the other side of it, you got Lilith, who's the Cate Blanchett's character, who's kind of facilitating the con and kind of making the arrangements, and she's keeping the money for she's keeping the money because Rooney Mara doesn't approve, and so it's kind of like they're cheating on Rooney the whole time, on Molly. So Grindle is a terrifying guy. He is really terrifying. There's something about Peter Jenkins, the way he delivers that role. It is brilliant. I mean, when you think about, he's the nice, kind father in Shape of Water, and in this, he is just like, he will ruin you, and he will ruin everybody you love if you cross him. And he's just, is he not one of the great actors of modern cinema? I don't know.
No, I would agree. And he's in Step Brothers, which is also funny.
He's a great comedy actor. Absolutely.
It's crazy.
I think he is the most underrated, like, master actor. I know he's a very well recognized actor. Anytime he's on screen, everybody says, "Oh, it's him." But I think I think he's Daniel Day-Lewis levels. He's Al Pacino, De Niro levels of master. If you want to say these are the masters of the the craft, the Cate Blanchetts of the world, the Meryl Streeps of the world, and all that, he is up there. And if he's not earning the money that they're earning, like, there's no justice in the world. Like, it's just
all of his roles are kind of in support of bigger characters, and that really speaks to how good he is, because he kind of blends in. And there's a line in, like, whenever he's finally going to see Molly as like the materialized ghost, and it's whenever he's now reluctant, he doesn't want to do it, he's pulling back from the plan, and there's a line that he like delivers, and it's like something like, "No, please don't, like, I don't want to," but like, just the way that he like lets it out, like, it almost just like kind of like leaks out of him, or seeps out of him, like, just, and like, just that fear of what he's done, but how powerful he is. It really like speaks to, like, what you were saying about his character being really scary. So
he ends up killing. So Jenkins, Grindle has a history of abusing women. That's kind of what's heavily implied. When he realizes that Molly, who Molly, like, the reality of the con, he puts his hands on Molly. Bradley Cooper comes to protect her, and they kill her. At the same time, one of the best moments, I think, in the film. They kill him. Or Bradley kills him. One of the best moments of the film for me, like, one of the kind of most shocking moments of the film, was while all this is happening, or maybe prior to that scene slightly, we see the judge that he initially did the trick on first day. So he went to the judge's house and met the judge's wife as well. And she wants to get kind of closure for her son who died in the war. And he says the lines, Bradley Cooper says lines, "You'll see him again in the next life," something to that effect. And this is the thing that just kind of ruins everything, because later this woman, Mrs. Kimball, shoots her husband and then herself in order to be with her son again. And it's hauntingly powerful, this moment. Like, the look, there's kind of this relief on the mother's face, on the wife's face, Mrs. Kimball's face, as she's just killed her husband. And then she just sits there with this kind of relaxing smile on her face, going, "Great, now everything will be right." And then she just kills herself. And it's so dark, it's so haunting. And word comes through on the radio or on by phone. Anyway, Holt, McElhaney's character, he discovers the news and just runs because he realizes his boss could be in danger here with these people. And it's too late then as well. He gets violently killed in a car. They run him over in the car. They destroy the car. Then Molly runs away. And that's, when he goes back to Lilith to get the money and finds out Lilith's been stealing from him. And not only that, but she's been recording the sessions. And she's been making fake sessions, I think, in order to make it sound like he's a mentally unwell patient of hers. And so she's been covering her ground the whole time. And so she's been using him. And it's implied early on. She kind of unbuttons her blouse at one point and reveals this scar over her back or her chest. I'm not too sure. I
Her
can't
chest,
remember.
on
Over
her
her
chest.
chest. And it's
Very
like,
bad scar.
yeah, she's clearly been abused by men in the past. And, this is, she's not going to be used by any man ever again.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is it maybe in the book? I don't know, but I wonder, is it a connection to Grindel? Maybe.
I believe that's what it's hinting at.
Yeah.
I think that's where I don't think it like really reveals his hand, but it's like I think you can connect the dots.
Yeah.
They never explain in the film.
No.
What I think John was asking me why. I think you asked me, why do you think she did that?
Yeah, I did.
And I think I said, well, it was enough. I think someone in the past must have like
seriously
someone of the same nature of Bradley Cooper did something, and so she planned this very well. And now I will destroy you. You had a laugh with me at the beginning, starting in the restaurant, because she hated him, really hated him. And I think she saw the opportunity. I'm going to destroy you. I'll find a way. And
it is the arrogance of men in that time, those types of characters, and they're all using women. It's Bradley Cooper going to Molly and saying, "Hey, I can make your trick better," and it's kind of this kind of imposing into her life and then imposing into Grindel's world, and it's and it's just this constant kind of exploitation of the women around them, and Lilith is a really compelling antagonist. I don't think I fully grasped it until I kind of had time to reflect on it later and did some reading on it. And I think there's something so subtle, and then also equally not so subtle about who she is. And the idea of her being this mastermind character is, just brilliantly written and brilliantly performed. No surprise by Cate Blanchett.
Yeah, it was funny because I did the same thing with my wife whenever we were watching it in the theater, and she like reveals her plan to him, or however much of it she reveals. But I was like, what did I miss?
Yeah,
like because I didn't fully grasp it either. But so yeah, that's funny that we kind of have the same experience.
But I love that. We always talk about how screenwriters should. You can withhold information. You can make the audience work. You can treat your audience, and let them inject some interpretation, as we're doing. And we praise Nolan for it, and we praise other filmmakers when they do it. But I think part of it is the reason why it's unexpected, maybe here, and why we might have been thrown by that and might have expected a little bit more is, and I was going to get to this point, which is, this is a really straightforward screenplay. Like, it's beautifully written. Like, the dialogue is incredible and everything. But it's a very, very straightforward. It's this person arrives at this environment, learns a craft, then takes this, moves, literally act 2, new stage, new set. Now we're in the city. And now I'm going to practice that for the first half of the act. Then in the second half, I'm going to exploit it, and I'm going to use it for nefarious purposes. And then the third act, now I'm kind of drawn into something, into something I can't get out of, and I need to get out of it. And it's a very, very simple, straightforward, and it's that circular nature as well. I'm going to ultimately find my way back to where I started, just worse off than I was before. There's nothing masterful about the structure of the story. There's nothing subtle about the structure of the story, and yet the characters are very, very subtly written. And I just think it's a really interesting dichotomy that does leave you feeling occasionally, did I miss something? Or I don't know. That was my reading of it. I like the kind of the screenwriter analyst, the screenplay analyst here.
Consider that the structure. So when it's a journey, obviously every film is a physical journey and an internal journey, but I think a story or the screenplay itself, it always feels very clean and straightforward when there is an actual journey, because he went to the carnival, experienced the carnival, left with a van, with a car to go to the city. Everything he did was leaving a place and go to another place, and I think that the movement, so the physical journey as well, made it feel very I say simple, but it's not simple. It's simple in a good way, that there was no, I didn't feel confused at any point, if I can say this. It's not like, no, sorry, I was confused. Why did he do that? Why did he say that? Or Molly, like nothing was, everything was, I think to facilitate the audience. So I guess rather than focusing on plot and what I said, perhaps an investigation, we were 100% focusing on the character's decision, the wants and needs. We always study that in screenwriting, goals, wants and needs. And so that's all we cared about. What does he want? What does he need to understand? Because we all knew what he needed, but he wasn't going to do it, which is a stop. He needed to stop. He just wanted more and he just couldn't stop. So I think that does show that when it's about focusing on those elements, then I think it's a very successful story and screenplay. And I mean, I really don't have anything negative to say about this film.
It's not, so just to kind of, I'm conscious of time, and so just to kind of start closing out the conversation, this has been nominated for Best Cinematography at the Oscars.
Yes, absolutely.
Incredible cinematography. I mean, it's just amazing. I don't know, what did you think? I don't know, Caleb, as a filmmaker.
Yeah, as a filmmaker, I guess.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's beautiful. I like, in theaters it was beautiful, and then on my TV at home it was beautiful. The thing that I love about Del Toro is what he does with lighting, and of course, like, working with a cinematographer, like, that's obviously their job, but he moved away from the teal and orange that is very like just kind of overused in cinema. And he's kind of landed in this green, somewhat neon sometimes. So this color palette that I really just love, because it's something different. But yeah, and then, like, of course you have the noir elements of this, with all the shadows that they're playing with, and yeah, it's just all, like, the set design, yeah, beautiful. So
I'm on the Oscars page right now. It's nominated for Best Picture. Is it worthy of Best Picture? I'm not saying whether it will win or not, but is it worthy to be on that list? Your thoughts?
I say yes. Because and that's, again, it's probably, this should be for another episode of the podcast, but I understand that typically the Best Picture is also related to the message of the film. Can we say that?
I think
like,
so, yeah.
What it represents, what's the social message, what is it depicting?
Mm-hmm.
But why not the best cinematography be the Best Picture? I mean, it doesn't, I've always said that there is no, reason why, because one would say it possibly, I believe it might not win. It wouldn't be something that could win Best Picture. That's what I think. It would be a surprise. But I still think the value of it is really human nature, and the idea of, like, talking about scenes, so almost like the 7 scenes. Is it that be greedy, lust, and because he's cheating on Molly at some point, and everything bad about human nature. there is a message there, but I don't think it's probably enough to make it win Best Picture, which is, but definitely, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, always like a balance between a good story, has to have a message, has to be beautifully, like beautiful in terms of cinematography. I think it deserves that. Yeah.
I think it's a great caper film. I think it's one of the great modern kind of any film that attempts to kind of capture the kind of that glow of the 1940s, 1930s aesthetic that we've come to expect from cinema, and that when capturing those decades, I think this is the best I've seen of that. And I love that it shows all walks of life, not just because of the variety of characters in the carnival and so on, but also it's showing the small town communities. It's showing the big city. It's showing the super rich, the people who have nothing. It's everything, and it's just such a kaleidoscope of kaleidoscopic view of those decades. And so I mean, I think there's a lot of contenders this year. I don't think it would ever win, and I'm not really kind of I wouldn't even kind of humor the idea of whether it could win, but I definitely think it's worthy of that award. I think of being nominated, and I think being nominated is what you can expect. I was surprised. I was convinced that it was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, and I'm disappointed to find it's not, because
that is kind of surprising.
I do think it deserved that. And I could make a good case for why it should win the Oscar as well, not just be nominated. So I'm quite surprised by that. But where do you think, Caleb, as somebody who's been shaped by Del Toro's films over the years, where do you think this sits in his work along? Overall? Would you say it's
real quick? Let me refresh just on like the order of things. So like even just
like if for example, if Shape of Water is the film that's winning all the Oscars for him, is this is this in line with that film, or would you say that it's a kind of a more flawed piece of work, or I don't know, how would you?
I mean, I think Pan's Labyrinth is his best. I think Shape of Water was kind of more of a life achievement award, and like it was good, but and I've only seen it once, but I need to go back and maybe I'll get a little bit more. But I think I feel like this is better than Shape of Water, just because and this is again, like the first viewing, I walked out and was like, why was that nominated? But I wanted to dive in and understand what people were seeing in this, because I felt like I had missed out on something. And so, I feel like it's better than Shape of Water. I like, now that I've watched it a second time, I think it sits higher up, like in some of his best work, because of just how like the production of it is amazing. The acting is like, walking out of it the first time, I was like, the acting was incredible. Like Bradley Cooper's great.
Yes.
Everyone around him is great. Like there's no arguing that. I think where it kind of like got me was the writing, and because it is so straightforward and it's not hiding anything, and so, but with speaking to Del Toro and how he directed this, that's like, I think with a different director, it wouldn't have been handled with such like a deft hand, like of like, because as I watched it, both times I got sucked in, and just, it's like an unflinching movie where I feel like I'll probably come back to this movie quite a bit and just turn it on and just get sucked in, because like it's just this sequence of events in this character's life, making these choices, and it's very hypnotizing almost.
It is, and it's hanging out in the world, which I think I love. I love a good film where you just hang out. I think that's one of the great things about Once Upon a Time Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well, the Tarantino film.
Oh
isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, I love. I just love that I'm hanging out in that world. Final thoughts, Michela?
Yes, I mean, I look forward to watch it again. I still believe, again, straightforward, but very original in the way the protagonist made his choices, which I loved. We definitely identify with the idea of wanting more in life, because that's what I took away from it, is to be careful, to stop at some point. That's what he should have done, not to end in that tragic way, obviously, so More Than a Drama was a tragedy for everyone, for all the characters. And so, yeah, I think it was a success. It was a metaphor for what we want in life, which is career and achievements and money and success. But, it doesn't always end well, as it happened to him. And so, great film.
Special mention to Kim Morgan, because special shout out to Kim Morgan, the writer of this film, because we've been talking about Del Toro the whole time, but Kim Morgan is co-credited with Del Toro, and I believe they're husband and wife actually, or partners, as well, which I think, you know what, they're probably in each other's heads, and that's probably why this script probably works so well. So I think great work there. But yeah, it's such a shame, because I thought, you know what, this is actually a really worthy screenplay Oscar contender, I'm quite disappointed actually now that it didn't. But yeah, I mean, you know what, just the fact that I desperately want to watch this film again. I don't really feel that way about a lot of Del Toro's films. I totally respect the work. I can't do what he does. I don't have the imagination for what he does. But the fact that I just want to watch this film again and again and again, I can't wait for it to get released properly, so that, can watch it in all its glory. I just think speaks volumes about the quality of the work. Guys, thanks very much for joining me today for this cool discussion. Definitely going to have to go back and watch Shape of Water now. Thanks very much for listening. We'll have a new episode out tomorrow. And until then, do check out our website, thescriptdepartment.net, for all the latest stuff that we get up to. Hit us up on social media. Links are in the description. And subscribe to the podcast. And subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Just search for The Script Department. Thanks very much.